All right, here we go. Me, T, T, T. T, 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 me. T, me, boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, T, me, T, boom, me, T, me, boom, me, T, me, boom, me, T, me, boom, me, T, me, boom.
I'm the curator of African art at the Minneapolis Institute of Art, and it's a real honor to celebrate the legacy of Fred Iran, who unfortunately I hadn't the pleasure to know. I will talk about what the museum tries to do to connect people with objects. But it's impossible to know everything about Africa. Africa is such a huge continent with so many countries. One of the highlights of African art, which is mainly sculpture, three-dimensional, are the masks. And of course, masks in Africa are part of a whole work of art that involves costumes, that involves music, dancing, singing, interactions with the audience, and it's impossible for a museum to replicate that whole environment. And what we tried to do was to use these tall cases or vitrines to show one or two masks and to invite visitors to kind of walk around the masks. The mask cannot move, but the visitor can. And that's how people in the context of origin would experience the masks from various angles and perspectives. World religions like Judaism, Christianity and Islam influenced the art making in Africa by African Jewish artists, African Christian artists, and African Muslim artists. So here are two examples of Jewish artists. On the left in Morocco. Morocco has a very old Jewish diaspora that started at the time of the Phoenicians, and these are so-called Torah finials. They decorate the two stems around which the Torah, the Holy Bible, is for the Jews, is rolled, and these decorate the tops of these two sticks. And when the Torah is carried through the synagogue, these little bells will ring. So it's kind of a musical, it becomes a musical instrument that draws the attention of the audience. And to the right is a necklace with the Star of David that comes from Ethiopia, the other side of the African continent, which also has an old Jewish diaspora. So there's a connection with Judaism, there's a connection with Christianity. On the left, a diptych, or an icon, if you wish, from around 1700, from Ethiopia, which was the first African country where Christianity became the state religion in 350. Can you imagine? That's over 1650 years ago. And so the king of Ethiopia converted to Christianity and declared it the state religion. And since then, Ethiopian artists have produced Christian art, which has a very long tradition there. And on the right, you see a figure made by the Congo people. Congo with a K. It's an ethnic group which then has given name to the country of Congo. But the Congo people were converted to Christianity by the Portuguese around 1500 and started making Christian art in their own style. Now here again are these some examples of writing boards. Writing boards are used in different contexts. On the left you see a photograph made at a school in Mali, in the city of Djenné. Writing boards are used by pupils and students to learn to write Arabic, which is the language of the Quran, and to learn calligraphy and to memorize the Quran by heart. And so you see a teacher correcting. It's like a slate. It's written by ink and then be washed off. And on the right you see the use of Quranic boards in a different context. This is a marabout or a Muslim healer who has been consulted by a client and who writes on the Quranic board certain verses or holy words that will help his client. And so then the board is washed off and the water is collected in this basin, and then the client will drink the water that contains the words that have been written on the Quranic board, and that water has become powerful through the words that were written on the board. There's of course the connection between Africa and the Americas through the slave trade. Many enslaved Africans would bring with them belief systems and iconography and the whole spirit world that was part of their own culture. To show the connection between Africa and the Americas, here are two diviners. A diviner is a person who basically uses spiritual means to solve certain problems. And either a problem is solved by looking in the past to find the cause of illness or misfortune, or by looking in the future. A diviner has the capacity to foresee the outcome of certain actions. And the Yoruba people in Nigeria have a very elaborate divination system called Ifa. And in fact, 10 years ago or so, UNESCO declared Ifa divination, part of humanity's intangible cultural heritage. So it's not an object, but it's a practice and a philosophy. A very complex system that also involves poetry. But the point I want to make here is that on the left you see a Babalawo, or father of mysteries, from Nigeria, a Yoruba man, performing this divination. And on the right, it's almost a mirror image, you have the Babalawo who practices Ifa also. A large number of Yoruba people were enslaved and brought to Africa and Cuba. And so you find the same system of divination in those various cultures. The connection between Islam and masks. On the right is a mask, again from Nigeria, from the Yoruba people, that depicts a Muslim cleric. You see a little beard, the turban with the amulets attached to it. So this represents a Muslim, and Yoruba culture is very ecumenical. There are Muslims, there are Christians, and all Yoruba also practice their traditional religion. On the left is a very unusual mask. In fact, this mask, made in Côte d'Ivoire, is actually used during Muslim ceremonies. And it's a coincidence that this lecture takes place today, but you may know that the holy month of Ramadan ended yesterday, and that today and tomorrow and Tuesday, I think, is the Eid al-Fitr, which is a big celebration. And this mask is worn at that time to celebrate the end of Ramadan by Muslims. And it's one of the few mask types throughout Africa that are connected with the Muslim religion. We are creating an online exhibition called Digital Diaspora Reuniting Somali Arts, where we will show various Somali items and then have comments from elders about what that particular item is. One of the missions of any museum, of course, is to have people recognize themselves in the art or see themselves reflected in the art. And so I invite you and encourage you to come and visit the Minneapolis Institute of Art
Hey!